The lights blaze. The crowd roars. Jimmy Kimmel steps onto the stage with his signature smirk, cue cards in hand, ready to deliver another night of entertainment to millions across the country. But tonight isn't going to go as planned. Because the man walking onto the set, dressed in understated black with a calm, steady walk, isn't just another celebrity plugging his next movie. It's Keanu Reeves. And within the next 10 minutes, the entire studio will fall into an eerie silence. Not because of a scandal, not because of a meltdown, but because of something much more dangerous in Hollywood: truth. What started as lighthearted banter quickly begins to turn. The laughter feels forced. The jokes get personal. Jimmy is pushing, and Keanu knows it. He's being mocked for his stillness, for his silence, for the silver cross around his neck. The camera keeps rolling. The audience laughs on cue. But something inside Keanu doesn't. Then, without warning, the tone shifts. A quiet remark. A story no one expected. And the entire room changes. By the time the segment ends, Jimmy Kimmel isn't the one in control. The man who was supposed to be the punchline becomes the one who lands the final devastating blow, without raising his voice. And when Keanu Reeves finally walks off that stage, the world will be left asking one question. Did Jimmy just get exposed on his own show? Keanu takes his seat, his expression serene, almost unreadable. He doesn't play to the crowd. He doesn't perform. He simply is. And that's the problem. From behind the desk, Jimmy Kimmel leans forward with a grin that doesn't quite reach his eyes. I gotta ask. He chuckles, flipping a cue card between his fingers. Are you always this serious, man? Like, do you even laugh in real life? The audience chuckles. But Keanu doesn't bite. He offers a soft smile, the kind that speaks of patience, not amusement. Joy doesn't always look loud, he replies. Sometimes it's quiet. A pause. Then Jimmy slaps the desk theatrically. Oh, come on, he laughs, eyes scanning the audience. Who else thinks this guy's secretly a monk in disguise? The crowd erupts. It's meant to be funny, but it lands differently. Backstage, a young assistant named Maggie watches from behind the curtain. She's seen this playbook before. Get a quiet guest. Poke him. Push him. Get a soundbite. But this time, something feels off. Jimmy grins wider, holding up a card labeled Cross Necklace Meme Edition. He taps the screen behind him and up pops a photo of Keanu, masked, hooded, stepping out of a hospital pharmacy. A glowing cartoon halo has been slapped over his head with text that reads, St. John Wick buys Advil. The crowd howls. Keanu's face doesn't change. Jimmy keeps going. He pulls up another image, a close-up from a red carpet event. The silver cross around Keanu's neck shines clearly. A man of action and confession, Jimmy quips. More laughter. More noise, but Keanu's silence sharpens. Not defensive, not angry, just still, like a wave that hasn't broken yet. Maggie watches closely. Something's building, and Jimmy doesn't see it coming. Jimmy's grin lingers, but his eyes are sharper now. He senses the crowd's amusement. He feels the control, the power of the spotlight, and he leans in deeper. So tell me this, Keanu, he says, his voice more playful now, but tinged with something else. You spent, 4 years on this documentary? Alone, no talking, no phones? That's not spirituality, man, that's just extreme. The audience chuckles, unsure if they're laughing at the joke or the man. Keanu shifts slightly in his seat. He doesn't frown, doesn't interrupt. He simply replies, What's more extreme is pretending the world makes sense when you never stop to listen to it. The laughter falters. Jimmy's eyes flick to his next cue card. Bolded words stand out. Too serious, emotionally repressed, internet monk. He picks one. Be honest, Jimmy presses. Is this just a thing you do for interviews? Like, are you trying to be deep or are you really this intense all the time? The words hang there. Not quite a joke, not quite an accusation, more of a challenge. A jab cloaked in a grin. Keanu remains still. The lights gleam off the silver cross on his chest. He doesn't answer right away, and that silence becomes the most deafening moment in the room. From backstage, Maggie's heart beats faster. She's seen enough segments to know when a guest is being boxed in. This isn't curiosity anymore. This is performance. A test. Jimmy pivots quickly to the audience. Well, folks, tonight might be less comedy, more therapy, right? He gestures for laughter. It comes, but it's thinner now, uncertain. Then, like adding salt to a fresh wound, the screen behind them shifts again. A new meme appears, this one edited to show Keanu in monk robes, prayer hands, fake glowing eyes. It reads, Keanu Reeves, silent but deadly, like your ex's texts. The room bursts into laughter, but Keanu doesn't. He leans back, legs crossed, eyes steady. And for the first time, Jimmy starts to feel it. The pressure. Not from the crowd, but from the man who isn't fighting back. The lights on stage beam brighter, almost harsh now. The room echoes with laughter, but the sound feels cold, manufactured, like everyone's playing a part, except one man. Keanu Reeves sits still. The memes have been flashing behind him like a carnival of mockery, cartoon filters, mock spiritual quotes. One even shows him sitting alone with the caption, Saint Keanu, patron saint of sad vibes. Jimmy taps the desk, loving the energy. He leans into the moment, emboldened by the audience's reaction. Come on, man, he says, chuckling. Are you a monk or just a really good actor pretending not to be pissed off? The crowd roars. A few people in the front row even shout, Lighten up, John Wick. Someone else yells, Where's your Bible now? Keanu's face doesn't shift, but something behind his eyes hardens. His smile is gone. Not replaced by anger, but by something much quieter, recognition. Backstage, Maggie steps forward. Her breath catches in her throat. She knows that look. It's the same look he wore the day of the funeral, the day he buried his daughter, the day she placed that silver cross into his palm when he had no words left. Jimmy isn't done. He's playing for the crowd now, for the clip that'll go viral. You ever think, he says, grinning, that maybe you're not mysterious, you're just emotionally constipated? The room explodes. Even the cameraman chuckles behind the lens. And for a moment, it works. Keanu looks down. Not to hide, but to breathe. It's the closest thing to defeat the crowd will ever see from him. To them, it looks like a man who's lost his cool. To Jimmy, it feels like victory. But to Maggie and to anyone really watching, it's not a retreat. It's a reckoning about to arrive. The laughter dies down, slower this time. Not because the joke was bad, but because something doesn't feel right. Keanu hasn't flinched, hasn't cracked, hasn't even blinked. And that silence? It's starting to feel dangerous. Jimmy glances at his next card but hesitates. His rhythm, once effortless, is beginning to slip. He pushes through anyway. All right, he says, adjusting in his seat. Enough of the therapy hour. Let's play a little game. He gestures to the screen behind them. True or false? Keanu edition. The screen lights up with exaggerated headlines and pictures. Keanu buys ice cream for entire film crew. Keanu secretly funds children's cancer hospitals. Keanu eats alone in parks. Like a lonely legend, the audience laughs again, but it's thinner, edged with confusion. They can feel the disconnect even if they can't name it. Keanu doesn't even look at the screen. This isn't why I came here, he says. Jimmy laughs nervously, assuming it's part of the act. Oh yeah? Then what did you come here for, Saint Keanu? Keanu looks up, calm, steady, but his voice is different now, lower, sharper. To talk about grief, he says, and how we survive it. Jimmy freezes. The air in the studio shifts. You can feel it in the audience's shoulders, in the silence that suddenly weighs heavy. My sister died of leukemia. Keanu continues. I was 23. I spent 2 years sleeping on a hospital floor. No one laughs. My daughter was stillborn. Her mother and I buried her beneath a sycamore tree. We named her Ava. The room is silent. Even the cameras stop panning. Even Jimmy, especially Jimmy, can't find the next card. Keanu doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't ask for pity. He just looks at Jimmy and says, "You mock my silence. But silence is where I met myself." And suddenly, the crowd isn't looking at a meme. They're looking at a man they thought they knew, and realizing they never did. For a full 5 seconds, no one speaks. The cameras keep rolling, but they capture nothing loud. Just Keanu sitting there still, honest, and suddenly in control. Jimmy's hand twitches toward his coffee mug. He forces a chuckle, but it lands flat. "Man, I didn't mean to, get so dark," he says, fumbling. "I was just trying to keep things light." Keanu's eyes don't leave his. He leans forward slightly, not with aggression, but with gravity. "Sometimes lightness is just another mask," he says, voice soft, but anchored. The crowd doesn't laugh. They listen. Backstage, Maggie steps closer to the curtain. She doesn't say anything. She doesn't need to. She knows what's happening. He's flipping the narrative. Jimmy scans his next card, but the words blur. He's lost the rhythm. The persona he leans on every night isn't holding up tonight. He tries again. "Okay," he says, lifting his voice. "I found this tweet that said," and I quote, "Keanu Reeves is what happens if empathy had a six-pack. You think that's fair?" Keanu's reply cuts through the room like a bell at midnight. "Empathy doesn't need muscles," he says. "It needs presence." The audience murmurs. It's not applause. Not yet. It's awareness. Jimmy shifts in his chair. He tries to joke again. "You've always been like this, huh?" Keanu replies without pause. "You mean not laughing when the pain isn't mine?" The silence returns. But this time, it's different. It's charged. Deliberate. Jimmy leans back, eyes flicking to the director off stage, searching for a reset, a cue, anything to pull the moment back into his hands. But there's nothing left to hold, because the man sitting across from him, the one he tried to paint as a caricature, isn't playing along. He's not playing at all. And suddenly, that's the most powerful thing in the room. Jimmy leans forward, trying to regain the stage with the only thing he knows, noise. He claps his hands, forces a grin. "All right, let's shake it off," he says too loudly. "Let's get back to the fun, huh?" The screen flashes again, this time with bright animated text. "Which Keanu story is real?" More headlines scroll by. Keanu donates millions to children's hospitals. Keanu offers seat to stranger on subway. Keanu spotted alone in the park. Again, Jimmy turns to Keanu. "Come on, pick one, let's play." But Keanu doesn't move. He doesn't even look at the screen. "This isn't a game," he says, "and this isn't the place." For a second, it's like someone cut the sound. Even the background music hums softer. The silence sharpens, and now it feels like the room itself is watching. Jimmy's jaw tightens. He sits straighter, arms folding. "You know," he says, voice clipped, "you take everything so damn seriously. Maybe that's your problem." Leans in, louder now. "Maybe you need to lighten up." Keanu doesn't blink. He leans forward slowly, like gravity is on his side. "And maybe," he says, "you need to feel something real." The words drop like stone in water. No drama, just depth. Jimmy falters. His lips part, but no joke comes out. His eyes flick around the room. He knows he's losing it. And then, like a final push over the edge, Keanu speaks again. "You once said," he begins, "that when your father left you were afraid people would see you as weak." Jimmy blinks. "You said being called weak was worse than being called cruel." A ripple moves through the audience. Keanu doesn't stop. "Now, you sit here mocking someone else's grief, but I see what this is. You've become the man who once made you feel small." Jimmy doesn't laugh, can't. He just sits there, caught. And this time, The silence belongs to Keanu. The crowd doesn't cheer. They don't clap. Not yet. They just watch because something is broken in the room, and it isn't Keanu. It's Jimmy. He sits still, the cards limp in his hands, the grin completely gone. There's no segment to save him. No punchline strong enough to stitch the moment back together. Across from him, Keanu remains calm, unmoved, almost gentle in his posture, but unflinching in his presence. "You turned into the thing that used to hurt you," Keanu says again. His voice isn't angry, it's honest. The camera zooms slightly instinctively. It knows something real is happening. Jimmy's throat tightens. He tries to laugh, dry and forced. "You think you know me?" he asks, but the words land weakly. Stripped of their edge, Keanu replies, "No, I just know what pain does to people." And then it happens. A single clap from somewhere in the back, then another, and another. Not wild applause, a slow rising wave of recognition. Not for Keanu the movie star, but for Keanu the man who didn't bend when belittled, who stood tall in silence, then let the truth speak louder than any joke ever could. Jimmy lowers his eyes. His hand reaches for the coffee mug, his usual reset, but it knocks over. Water spills across the desk, bleeding into his cue cards, washing the ink into swirls of ruin. He stares at it, a mess he can't clean with charm. Backstage, Maggie watches with tears welling. She doesn't wipe them. She just whispers. They finally saw him. And the audience, once laughing at a meme, now stands in ovation. Not as fans, but as witnesses. Witnesses to a quiet storm that never needed thunder to leave a mark. Jimmy doesn't speak. He doesn't look up. The man who once commanded the crowd with quick wit and smirking confidence now stares at a puddle of water soaking through his cue cards. His shield gone. The studio lights still glow, but the spotlight has shifted. It no longer frames the host. It frames the guest who never asked for it. Keanu rises slowly, not with fury, not for applause, but with a presence that makes silence feel sacred. He looks at the crowd, not to bask in admiration, but to acknowledge them, really see them. "Thank you," he says quietly, not for watching, but for listening. And then, without a wave, without a cue, he walks off the stage. The camera follows him briefly. No exit music, no handshake, just footsteps and the sound of something deeper, a reckoning echoing through the room. Jimmy remains seated, his fingers tighten around the mug now empty. A showrunner leans in, whispering, "Should we cut to commercial?" But the control booth doesn't respond. Even they're unsure if the show is still a show. Online, the reaction is instant. Clips flood social media. Keanu silences Kimmel with pure truth. The moment talk show arrogance got humbled. This wasn't an interview. It was a masterclass in grace. Comment sections fill with words like respect, dignity, finally. And for Jimmy, there's no spin cycle fast enough to reverse it. The moment has passed and he lost it. Behind the scenes, Maggie hands Keanu his phone. The screen lights up. The clip of his quiet stand has already crossed 1 million views, and counting. He exhales softly. Not a laugh, not pride, just peace. Because he didn't fight back to win. He simply showed who he really was, and let the world decide who they wanted to follow. Outside the studio, the night air feels different. Not cold, just still. Keanu steps onto the quiet sidewalk, the noise of applause now a memory fading behind him. There are no cameras in his face, no paparazzi waiting, just the hum of a city that, for once, doesn't demand his smile. Maggie walks beside him, silent. She doesn't say much, she doesn't need to. She's seen enough to understand. What happened back there wasn't just a TV moment. It was a reminder, a mirror. She hands Keanu his phone. The video of the interview has already passed 1.4 million views in under an hour. Thousands of comments pour in. This is what real strength looks like. Not all heroes speak loudly. He made the whole world feel something, and he never even raised his voice. Keanu reads none of them. He just locks the screen and slips the phone into his jacket. They're listening now, Maggie says softly. He nods once, not in pride, but in acceptance. Because it was never about going viral. It was about truth. And truth, once spoken, can't be undone. Somewhere, inside every viewer, a question lingers. What if we treated people like they were carrying something we couldn't see? What if silence wasn't weakness, but wisdom? What if dignity didn't need applause to be real? Back. In the studio, Jimmy Kimmel remains seated long after the cameras stop. The wet cue cards are crumpled in his lap. The laughter is gone. Only a reflection remains, and it doesn't look like a punchline. And as Keanu walks into the night, his footsteps echo not just through the city, but through every screen that watched him choose grace over performance, presence over punchlines, truth over spectacle. Thank you for watching. If this moment moved you, share it. Because in a world obsessed with noise, sometimes the quietest voice speaks the loudest truth.